Precisamente vamos a analizar esta detección, esta sorpresa, estos rayos X del 3 y Atlas, como siempre, con los mejores expertos. Y hoy contamos con Avi Loeb, científico de Harvard. Hi, Avi, thanks for being with us. Negocios TV, it's a pleasure. How are you here?
Thanks for having me.
We are talking about the X-ray. What does this mean? What does mean this first X-ray detection?
Yeah, so the Japanese space agency has an X-ray satellite that was able to detect 3I Atlas in X-rays. And that is the first time we detected X-rays from an interstellar object. Previously, we detected X-rays from comets in the solar system. And the process is well known. It's basically any plume of gas around an object is being bombarded by the solar wind. These are energetic particles coming from the sun. And when they stream out, they are usually charged, mostly protons. And when they collide with atoms of gas, they can basically exchange charge with the atoms of the gas, and as a result of that we get some X-ray emission, and this is called charge exchange, and that allows us to see plumes of gas around any object as a result of the bombardment of that gas with the solar wind. And so the same thing was observed for 3I Atlas for the first time. The instrument is called, the satellite is called the X-RISM, and it has a camera that was able to image in X-rays the environment of 3I Atlas once it went 60 degrees away from the sun, because if it's too close to the sun, no telescope can look at 3I Atlas. So they waited until now, about a week ago, when it was possible to observe 3I Atlas when it was more than 60 degrees from the sun. And there is another benefit of observing it now relative to previous times. 3I Atlas arrived from the direction of the center of the Milky Way galaxy. So that is called the Sagittarius region in the sky. And that is crowded with lots of X-ray sources. Now it actually moved because of the motion around the sun. It's now in a direction of the halo of the Milky Way galaxy, so it's not crowded there, and it's relatively straightforward to subtract off any residual emission, either from the atmosphere of the Earth or from the Milky Way galaxy. And so that's what they did, and they managed to detect it. And what they saw are the fingerprints of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen atoms being bombarded by the solar wind. And that's a beautiful illustration of the fact that we already knew that there is a plume of gas around 3I Atlas. It was detected by the Spherex space observatory and by the Webb telescope, and we knew the composition of that plume of gas. So now we can see it in X-rays.
Avi, talking about this X-ray, does this emission support a natural explanation?
No, not necessarily. I mean, we already knew from the Webb telescope data that there is gas around this object. And the anomalies of this object were that most of the halo of glowing material around the object is extended towards the sun. That's the anti-tail. So all we are doing in the X-rays is observing the same halo of gas, just in a different form of light, very short wavelengths X-ray radiation. But it doesn't shed any new evidence about the nature of the object itself. I mean, we already knew since July that there is gas around it that comes from the surface of the object. It's mostly carbon dioxide. But and there was also some oxygen in water molecules. So this carbon and oxygen and also nitrogen we knew exists because we found cyanide. So that includes nitrogen. So there is nothing fundamentally new with these X-ray observations. I'm waiting for the biggest telescopes on Earth to report about spectroscopy of the gas around the 3I Atlas, because we see it coming from jets. And if we knew the speed of the gas in the jets, that would tell us whether it's indeed the evaporation of pockets of ice on the surface of a rock. where we expect the speed to be of order a few hundred meters per second, or whether it's something else like a technological jet, a thruster would operate at speeds that are much larger than that, a few kilometers per second for the standard rockets that we use, or a few tens of kilometers per second for the ion thrusters that we use in space. So it's really up to future data to tell us whether everything we see about 3I Atlas is natural or not.
And Avi, what about the anti-tail? What could explain the reported anti-tail pointing toward the sun?
Yeah, so that's quite surprising because, you know, the only situations in the past where we saw an anti-tail was just an illusion, an optical illusion, because we were passing through the plane of a comet moving around the sun. So from some angle, it would look as if the actual tail that goes away from the sun looks as if it's towards the sun, but that was just an optical illusion in some cases. And we expect comets to produce a tail because the gas and dust are pushed away from the sun by the solar radiation and the solar wind. And indeed, we see that. And in the case of 3I Atlas, when it was approaching the sun, there was a Hubble Space Telescope image indicating that there is a jet, something pointing from the object towards the sun, an anti-tail. And now that it's moving away from the sun, we also see the same thing. We see in the latest Hubble image from a week ago, we do see a tail extending towards the sun. It's not a tail, it's actually an anti-tail. It's a jet going in that direction. So that was true throughout the path of 3I Atlas, and the only thing that changed was that it continued to move in roughly the same direction. So the direction of the tail was previously in the direction of motion, and now it's opposite to the direction of motion because the object is moving away from the sun. And the question is, what's the physics behind this anti-tail? And I wrote several papers. One explanation that I suggested was that the anti-tail is a result of fragments of ice that are lifted from the surface of the object, and before they have a chance to turn around and become a tail, they get evaporated by sunlight. And another possibility that I discussed more recently is that the object is basically shedding big objects from it, macroscopic objects, and then it gets separated from them. Because we know that 3I Atlas has some non-gravitational acceleration pushing it away from the sun. And if these objects are not being pushed away from the sun, then they would lag behind the main nucleus. And so they would scatter sunlight and appear as an anti-tail. These are the two ideas that I had, but we don't know for sure what describes this anti-tail, and it's one of the anomalies of 3I Atlas.
Well, waiting for more info about 3I Atlas, waiting for the 19th of December. Avi, thanks for being with us again. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, and stay curious.